That's interesting. That they're codified in that way, and but is what Franklin said in the 1700s still relevant today?
Charles, absolutely. In 1758, when Benjamin Franklin wrote The Way to Wealth, people were struggling with the same issues that we struggle with today. Things like making ends meet, paying your bills, getting and keeping a good job, paying your taxes, healthcare. Back then, they didn't have a structured healthcare system, but people still needed to get treated by doctors or needed medical attention. And lastly, one of the hot-button issues recently today is about immigration. Well, in those days, they said foreigners were taking their jobs. So people were interested in the same things we're interested in today. In 1758, the principles in The Way to Wealth helped people then prosper. But today, it's even easier to apply those principles because we have so much more wealth and opportunity available to us in modern society.
And, of course, there was that huge argument about the border fence back then on western Pennsylvania. Also, there is, you may not be aware of it, but there's a famous argument between Ben Franklin and John Jay on whether to get a Belkin or a Linksys router.
Well, I would love to see that sometime.
All right, hold on. Stem. Tucsonans, worried about issues of self-protection, crime, and self-defense? The Arizona Concealed Weapon Training Course addresses these issues and many more. Can I use force to protect my property? When is deadly force authorized? Does burglary justify deadly force? Does Arizona law provide for citizen's arrest? What should I tell the police if I have to use force to defend myself? For information on these classes, call 419-2500.
Thank you for listening to Liberty Watch.
Welcome back to Liberty Watch, where we're talking about comfort and prosperity with Jack Vincent. Jack is a successful entrepreneur in the insurance and real estate businesses, and he joins us now on the phones. I think you're in New York, aren't you?
Temporarily for the next hour and a half. I'm in Pennsylvania, but on my way to New York to do a show tomorrow morning with Liz Clayman on the Fox Business Network.
Ah, very good. So at least on the Fox Network, they're going to cover the topic of prosperity a little bit.
I hope, Charles, I really do.
Yeah, it would be nice. I would really love to see, it almost seems like prosperity has become a dirty word. And I so regret that because I'm such a fan of success. Have you ever read Catherine Ponder's The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity?
Was that a book out about 5-6 years ago?
No, actually it was a book about 125 years ago. Or so, but it's still in print. I remember a long time ago, I got taken by a girl I was dating at the time to a bookstore that the Unity Church had, and they had a whole section on prosperity and success, and that was a book I picked out called Catherine Ponder's The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity. You can get the book online free. And it's a fascinating study of the principles of success, many of which are embodied, of course, in Ben Franklin's and yours, The Way to Wealth, the way you've rewritten it. What made you choose to rewrite it instead of in English of 1758 in modern terms?
Well, as you know, The Way to Wealth was originally written in colonial English, which many people find colonial English difficult to read and understand. So the book meant so much to me. I always wanted to modernize the story and rewrite the book in easy-to-read, everyday English so that people could once again benefit from Benjamin Franklin's words of wisdom. You know, Charles, there are so many people that are struggling today. Almost everyone knows an individual or a family that are struggling. This book and Benjamin Franklin's wisdom really addresses the fundamental principles and the problems that get people into financial trouble, and also will help them get out of financial trouble and prosper going forward.
I want to cover. Go ahead.
That's why I rewrote it.
I want to cover some of those specific principles a little later in the interview, but I want to do that progressively. Much of the book, and if you're calling in, we'll be with you in just a moment, folks. Phones are open at 520-790-2040 in the Perfection Auto Works studios, or 866 if you're in Arizona but away from Tucson. 866-725-5467. You're up in Globe or out in Douglas. Jack, much of the book is an entreatment to self-reliance. To the objective observer, society seems to inveigh against a culture of self-reliance. It's stressing wanting us to be more collective in our endeavors as opposed to individualistic. How do you preach that virtue in the face of a massive push in the opposite direction?
Well, the message is self-reliance, which Benjamin Franklin, along with many, if not most, of our founding fathers. The good thing about that message is you could bring that back to yourself and own it and begin doing something with that concept. I don't like to fight everything that the government wants to do, because there are certain things the government has to do for us. For example, they have to secure our borders, hopefully, protect from threats from abroad. And then beyond that, many of the things that the government does for us is debatable. But the important thing about the way to wealth and living a prosperous life is that the government is not going to make you prosperous. You being the individual, must take responsibility for your own life. And it starts with knowing, being aware, and understanding the principles that will lead you to a prosperous and more successful life.
You know, yesterday I was at the Tea Party event here in Tucson, and John McCain spoke. And McCain, one of the first things he said is, we've got to secure the borders. And it absolutely sounded like a Monty Python audience. There were a few, sort of weak applause, and a few people went, yay, and it just completely fell flat. And that's what I think of when the things the government is supposed to do for you in terms of securing the borders. Hold on. Linda, you're live on Liberty Watch with Jack Vincent. Your comment or question for Jack?
Thank you very much for taking my call, and glad to listen to your work today, your contribution. My proposition to that, and I do agree with most of what you said, my thing is, I think their biggest problem, like I graduated high school in 1975, so that gives you an idea where I'm at in current times. I think that there's like a mass production and processing of people to launch them into the world, and the family structure is unfortunately unreliable. And I also think that there's too much reliance on financial theory as opposed to practical wisdom and like facing the liquidity of cash. And a lot of this came to me through just personal experience of having savings accounts and over the years. And unfortunately, I lost most of my savings over the years because of the meltdown of our employment and our manufacturing base. So the point I'm making is there's a lot of people who they were right on a cusp of engaging a lot of the wisdom from Benjamin Franklin, but unfortunately sometimes the confusion in life and the noise of life sometimes can offset that.